Why do you get so much garbage out here? Because I went to a Cineplex Odie, one of those little miniature theaters where the popcorn can is half as big as the room, and everybody gets jammed in and out there, jammed out. Then the guy comes in with a big bag and collects the trash, then pushes another audience in there. And I saw 6 previews. I said, why did I have to watch the previews, let alone the movies? They're all sadistic. That's my speech. But go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you something. None of us, we don't make bad movies on purpose. They just often turn out that way. We do try, cross my heart.
Nobody starts out saying, I'm going to make a really rotten
No, I'm talking about a particular kind of movie.
I know.
In the old days, cowboys like you would shoot the other guy and go, bang, bang, you got me as a cartoon. It had nothing to do with the human experience. It was just sort of fun. Nowadays, John Malkovich has to fall at least 60 floors, and you have to see his face seeing the doom coming, or the people doing it don't get a kick out of it. Why are we raising a population of people who we're developing an appetite for sadism?
Okay, to begin with.
I don't want to sound like Tipper Gore, but
violence,
I am, I guess.
Violence has been endemic to drama all the way back to the Greeks, up to Shakespeare, everybody else. I think we are going over the line a little bit. It used to be, if you got shot in a movie, you could fall and there would be blood running out, but you wouldn't see your head explode. And there was truly
progress.
I'm afraid it was poor old Sam Peckinpah, God rest his soul.
I loved him, actually. He developed a horse where the guy's riding on the horse. He doesn't just get shot and say, you got me, and falls over. This harness yanks him off the horse about 50 miles an hour, and he goes flying. Let's get to the questions. Let's start.
My name is Richard Zaromsky of Camarillo, California, formerly of Red Sox territory.
All right.
And my question is for Maureen and Chris and anyone else is this 1999-2000 the year of the woman in politics, and including Elizabeth Dole? Where do you see the victories? Are there going to be victories?
Thanks, Rich.
Well, there have been a lot of year of the woman in politics. Unfortunately, the news media only tends to cover the ones when there are Democrat women running and not Republican women running. I can give you many examples of, for instance, there were 6 women candidates for governor in 1986, and 5 of them were Republicans. So that has gone on for a long time. I think Elizabeth will bring certain aspects to the debate, and when she articulates her positions and allows people to choose whether or not they agree with her, I think that being a woman will be an asset to her.
What do you think about Mrs. Clinton's putative campaign for Senate?
Punitive.
Well, I like the cartoon in Newsweek. I like the cartoon in Newsweek that had the Jane Doe #1 for Senate billboard over the White House and Clinton in the office, and somebody saying, Mr. President, I think she's going for the pity vote.
Wilson, I think there's something, you know how American voters sort of do course corrections with the election process. They felt Ike, I don't think this anymore. I used to think that Ike might have been too old. We all change our minds about these things. And so they bring in JFK. And, of course, Carter wasn't strong on certain things. They brought in Reagan. And, of course, Bush was kinder and gentler. We make these little course corrections. The course correction now, it seems to be, is very much centered in the Oval Office and in that hallway behind the Oval Office. Do you think a woman has a better shot now because of the misbehavior of this president?
I think I've always predicted that the first woman president would be a Republican, and I still believe that. But it's going to be... It will not be because of her gender. It will be because she has guts and brains. It'll be somebody like Margaret Thatcher.
A leader.
Yeah.
A leader.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Goldstein. I'm president of the Simi Valley Republican Women's Federated. And I'd like to know, where's the outrage against President Clinton for his affairs and so forth from the women's group, such as now, as there were against Clarence Darrow and Clarence Thomas, the judge?
Well, I may be the last feminist standing. I really think so, because I have been outraged from the very beginning that everything that we fought for, to be taken seriously in the workplace, to be treated as adults, Everything that has been a part of my life for 25 years seems to be thrown away by people that I know and who I worked and fought for those things with. I don't understand it. I truly don't understand it. And I think you would probably agree with what I'm about to say. I am outraged at the American people, and women in particular are not more outraged.
You would agree, would you not, Maureen, that Patricia Ireland's having to dance some very careful steps these last few weeks?
Well, I think and then the others didn't even bother to dance the very careful steps. They just said, oh, well, it doesn't count or it doesn't matter. And I don't understand this. These are the same people.
It mattered with Anita Hill, too.
Well, and these are the same people who in 1983 said that went ballistic and picketed the White House because Ronald Reagan said that women were a civilizing influence on men.
That's a hard
one. How dare we?
You know, I have to say, Patricia Ireland was on the program on Hardball last week, and she was very tough. She said that she doesn't think that the president's words are worth the air it takes to speak them, and anything it puts on paper is not worth the paper it's written on. She dared the president to go after Jane Doe 5 or any 6, 7, 8 nth Jane Doe who comes along to be victimized by what's called, in the language of the White House, the nuts or sluts strategy. She said all this, yeah. So I think things are turning around. I think I will defend now.
Good.
Anyway, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Sandra Hildebrandt, and I'm from Agoura, California. And I'd like it to know if you can tell us this early what your thoughts are, what George W. Bush's chances are in a presidential race against Al Gore.
Governor first.
I think they're very good. I think that it isn't just the poll, but I think that what that poll tells you is that Gore is vulnerable. He is not Bill Clinton. He is not nearly the effective communicator. He is, in my judgment, more of an ideological liberal. And again, though, what we should do is not make the mistake of simply attacking him on anything other than really his own performance on real issues. Ronald Reagan never attacked anybody ad hominem. He never went after anybody on the basis of personality. He went after them, if he went after them at all, on the basis of their record and argued ideas. George Bush, whoever the Republican candidate is, will have to do that same thing. We've got better ideas. And this president has been successful because he is remarkably slick in terms of symbolic gestures. He is the first president in history to be elected and reelected by running for the local school board or for mayor or for governor, and he's been very successful. What that says is that the American people ought to pay a little more attention about who it is that provides them with services. And simply endorsing school uniforms does not make you a great education president.
Charlton, Heston, how do you like when you look at the field of potential candidates to replace this president, who do you like? What do you see out there?
I'm quite impressed with the one or two times I've spent very little time with George W. Bush. I think he is a better campaigner than his dad was. I agree. I really do.
Well,
and also, I would point out, Vice President Gore is not very effective in public. The story they tell, which I've had confirmed many times before the first inauguration, when Gore and then President-elect Clinton went down to Monticello to follow Jefferson's path to the inauguration. And the curator showed them through, and there was in the library, there was a table with 3 marble busts. So this is not a joke. This really happened. And the vice president-elect said, and who are these gentlemen? And the curator looked at him and he said, well, this is George Washington. This is Benjamin Franklin, and that's Mr. Jefferson. I mean, that shows a certain vacancy there. Really, I don't know how you'd get out of that.
Well, Al Gore himself once admitted that he was so dull that his Secret Service code name is Al Gore. You're watching Hardball on NBC. You're watching Hardball. see we're back to the Reagan Library out here near Los Angeles, and we're taking questions from the audience, just like Donnie. Go ahead.
My name is Stu from Carlsbad, California. Questions for you, Chris. About one of your ex-bosses that you worked for.
The big guy.
The big guy.
Right.
What would he have done with the recent impeachment trial? Would he have circled the wagons with the rest of the Democrats, or do you think he would have bolted and pursued the removal of the scoundrel from office?
Oh, that's a good one. He wouldn't have known what to make of it, first of all. I don't think he understood all that kind of lifestyle world. He and Rostenkowski, whatever their faults were, those guys were pretty prudish about such things, and they didn't understand this kind of behavior. And I don't really want to think about that, except he was a party man. He probably would have defended him. I think he probably would have sent a signal some way that he was disgusted with it. And I think the leaders haven't done that. Al Gore hasn't done it. That's a big problem. But I think that's a tough question for anybody who's a loyalist, how you exactly... Governor Wilson, how would you express your disapproval without your disloyalty to a president who you were serving?
Straightforwardly. I mean, first of all, I don't think I would have been placed in the position by any Republican president I can think of. But secondly, if it's on an issue where you disagree, you disagree. And I think that you're not just at liberty, but obliged to make it clear that even as a party loyalist, if you have a real basic disagreement, you say so, you say why.
Mr. Heston.
I think there have been ample examples in the history of our government where men resign from office from the president's staff.
Watergate is a perfect example. It was Barry Goldwater and Howard Baker and the other adults in the Senate who went to the president and said, this is unacceptable to us.
That's been the big dog that hasn't barked in this affair so far.
Maybe there aren't many adults left.
Well, I have to say that I will say something for the British when they had the Profumo scandal in Britain, of course. One of the most astounding moments is when the ministers walked in, turned in their office, and went back to their clubs, and everybody said, 3 cheers, you did the right thing. No one's done that. Not a single cabinet secretary has walked. Donna Shalala has spoken up inside. I hear Billy Daley, the Secretary of Commerce now, has spoken up, and his brother talked him into not quitting. But I would have thought people with their own moral systems, whether hip, secular moral systems or religious moral systems, would have said, I will not be lied to. More importantly, I will not be used as a liar. I think that was where I think you could say, I leave here. When you tell me to spread lies, that's when I have to leave.
I would have to say that even though they didn't vote for the articles of impeachment, they didn't vote to convict. You have to bear in mind 29 Democratic senators signed Senator Feinstein's letter, which recites as fact that Bill Clinton did in fact perjure himself, did obstruct justice in a way that interfered with the presentation or the obtaining of evidence in a judicial proceeding. Ironically, one that had to do with sexual harassment.
Where do you think they will file that document in the Clinton Library?
In the little room off the Oval Office.
Hi, I'm Ernie Olmsted from Leisure Village, Camarillo. Question is, with the alleged spying by the Chinese affect the Democrats in 2000, particularly Al Gore?
That's a great question. The Governor. The report, it's now clear, according to the New York Times yesterday, that the reason that we know about that gentleman who's the scientist in Los Alamos who was fired this week, the reason we even know about the suspicion that he was involved in espionage for the People's Republic is because Chris Cox, the California congressman, had it in his report, which is still declassified, still classified. And you have to ask yourself, certainly he was a good sport in not releasing that before the election. But what's this going to do to the next election?
Well, it is still classified, and so until it is at least sufficiently declassified so we know what the role was and what failure there has been on the part of the administration, it's a little hard to answer the question. If, in fact, they have been guilty of any kind of a procedure that was either a failure to safeguard secrets, certainly if there was anything that in any way deliberately compromised the security of important secrets, they should deservedly pay a very stiff price.
Yes.
I think also, and I'm surprised and deeply distressed by the degree to which the media has walked a very careful line in terms of the China thing. The New York Times has come out releasing some of the information on the Chinese espionage, and the Wall Street Journal, but the broadcast press has, I think, been less active in that.
Yeah, well,
what do you think yourself?
Well, I think that people have a hard time wrestling with the exact relationship between us and the Chinese. We used to call them the Red Chinese. They're still communist. They're certainly totalitarian. They tell people who can have babies, who can't have babies. They are a totalitarian society in every way, yet they're a capitalist society. We wonder about whether they should be able to have bases here in Southern California that they own in their state enterprises. Should they have a role in the Panama Canal? I mean, these are very hard questions, but they haven't been clearly identified lately as the enemy, because that's diplomatically tricky. You don't want to call another country the enemy, so that's the tricky part.
But with their now nuclear capability, we may be entering a new Cold War, which should be a very good reason to go forward with a strategic defense initiative.
Okay, you're watching Hardball on CNBC. That was Maureen Reagan for SDI. We're back taking questions at the Reagan Library. Let's go to the next man.
Hi, my name is Brian Schwann. I'm from Ventura. And Pete Wilson talked earlier about privatization of Social Security. I personally feel that I, as an individual, ought to be able to invest the money that I pay into Social Security into investments which I choose. My question is, do you feel that, given the fact that it's such a divisive wedge issue that politicians use to confuse the public, that Congress will ever do the right thing and fix Social Security for good?
The answer, sir, is that they will have to at some point, because the system's broken. It's going to go broke. And the question is not will they, but when. And when will they have the guts to do it? I mentioned Margaret Thatcher earlier. A number of times during G7 meetings, she brought the issue up. And I think that she was disappointed that the response that she got was, well, Maggie, not on our watch. This is a problem, yes, but it's going to happen later. And the fact of the matter is, not just the United States, but the developed democracies of the world are all facing an enormous problem in terms of the affordability of elder care benefits. And if we don't do something about it, the potential is not just potential, it is a guaranteed result. We're going to find ourselves unable to support the cost of that. By contrast, about 15 nations have gone the route of privatization. They've said to people like you, who are willing to invest your own money, that you should have an opportunity to do so. And you can put some constraints on this. You can require that people use a mutual fund, but what we have got now is a system in which the ratio of working people to those being supported, the retirees, has gone from about 5.6 to 1 some 30 to 40 years ago to where we will soon find it in 1.5 to 1 or 1 to 1. That doesn't work. So we've got to fix it. The question, sir, is not will we, but when, and which Congress will have the guts to do it.
Tell me, Pete, why does the current administration, why are they so reluctant to take this clearly useful step?
Well, because they think it's fraught with political danger. And, you know, it has been.
You're addressing the problem now.
I agree, and the time will come when, in fact, it has to be addressed. And the question is, are they going to have the political courage to do it when they should, early on?
The sooner the better, really.
Yeah. The trouble is that the bridge to the 21st century is often built with BS for this guy.
At least it's all
too often. Yeah, because the real bridge would have to be built with hard decisions about age of eligibility, perhaps means testing, perhaps all kinds of questions. The retirement test has to be dealt with. These are very tough political questions, and every one of them bothers somebody. And how much is covered when you pay as a worker, how much of your income gets covered by the tax, the payroll tax. These are hot issues, and this guy doesn't want to touch hot issues because he wants to keep up those poll numbers because he needs them to defend himself with. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kathy Van Loo, and I live here in Simi Valley, California. And my question is, what do you consider President Reagan's greatest accomplishment?
Blood first.
Ronald Reagan's greatest accomplishment really was being Ronald Reagan. It was the fact that he made us believe in ourselves at a time, very low ebb in our history, a time when we thought we were losing the Cold War, when we thought we couldn't find solutions to our problems, and he was of the greatest generation that Tom Brokaw wrote about, that generation that saved the world by knowing what to do with baling wire and chewing gum. And he just looked at us and said, excuse me, but there's nothing we can't solve. We're Americans. And we all went, oh, yeah, I forgot. And so if there's one thing that he did that was important, that was it.
Charlton Heston.
I think Ronald Reagan, for one thing, I'm proud of saying he was my president before he was yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Charlton Heston, it's great to have you. Maureen, Reagan, thank you. Governor Pete Wilson, two-term governor, two-term senator, unbeaten, unmatched. Thank you for joining us. Rivera Live's up next. We'll see you tomorrow night, and on Monday, join us for a hardball from New Hampshire with a town meeting where we'll talk to presidential hopeful John Kasich about his race to replace Bill Clinton.